Due to the Fairfield County Budget Workshop number 1 on this day, April the 30th, 2021, 25. Behind. Can I get a motion to amend the agenda? Okay, it's been motioned that we approve the agenda. All in favor? Opposes? Okay. 5-0. Okay. Invocation, Mr. Cobalt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we sincerely thank you for the beautiful weather you have blessed us with in this beautiful county. We also thank you for the dedicated staff and employees who work hard to serve the citizens of this county. Please watch over them, keep them safe and healthy, Lord. And please guide this council as we go through this budget preparation for next year to set the appropriate priorities for the citizens of our county and to make the best decisions we can within the constraints we have. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
Amen. All right, now we're down to departmental budget update. Mr. Carpenter.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, thank you. Thank you for taking your time today. Could you turn your mic off? Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking your time out today. I appreciate the staff, the team for being here. I appreciate our citizens as well. This is a critical thing that we do as an organization. It's the building and the passing of a budget. And this is very much in the building phase of the budget right now. So the budget for the next 2 months will develop in front of us. We'll have a lot of interaction, a lot of conversations, and finally in June, a budget will be approved that meets the needs of this county and the citizens therein. Again, it's a process. So what we're doing today is we're starting. Back in February, you had a chance to listen to departments. We have departments here again today, but they've mostly presented to you already. And what we're doing today is I've selected some of the bigger departments that have needs, that have some critical focus, to also get up and spend some more time talking to you about their needs. A department that does not present does not mean that they don't have needs or that they are not also interested in talking to the council. But I'm trying to be cognizant of everybody's time too. There'll be plenty of opportunity if you have questions about any particular department to get into that. But I'm not going to have all 30 plus departments get up in front of you again today. And even at 5 minutes a department, which, you know, it wouldn't last that long, we'd be here till 7, 8 o'clock tonight. And we wouldn't necessarily have advanced the ball far. But what you do have is the very first stage of the budget. And what this is in your packet are the requests from the department. Now, as you go through, and we'll explain those, but as you go through and look in the upcoming weeks and months, these are where they, as departments, are requesting for their upcoming budget. This is not what is being recommended to council. This is not as a result of council having input through its priorities and what have you as well. This is just their requests. And so the forms you have in front of you then will also talk about what the capital requests are. And I have submitted as well what their personnel requests are. So we start with all that, and you know we have basically requests totaling approximately $44 million in front of you. Again, that's a wish list. That's not a guarantee by any stretch that the revenues would be there to support that, or that they would meet the needs of the council as well in doing that. But that's what you have in front of you go through. So in the next couple of days and weeks, you know, I asked you to look at these requests and start understanding as well where you may have questions for that. Later on in this, I'm going to have a conversation with you to start setting some priorities for us on staff so we can hone a budget that better meets your needs. Now, I will tell you that as I build a budget, when I told you the first time I met you, there are a couple things that are in front of me the whole time. The first thing is taking care of the people we have. So I always, before I look to add people to a budget, I look to make sure the people we have currently working for us are taken care of. And Ms. Swearingen, hey, I apologize. I told them that I thought you were out of town still, so my apologies. So that's the first priority to me is making sure that the current employees, before we look to add new employees, unless it's a critical aspect to it. The next thing for me that is important is maintaining and providing the necessary equipment for those employees. So that's making sure that they have safe vehicles to drive in. That's making sure that they have dependable vehicles to drive in. That's making sure they have health and safety gear. So turnout gear for firemen, radios for public safety, bulletproof vests, ammunition, things like that that are critical for them to do their jobs. So those are all my priorities that I look at as I try to build a budget first, to make sure the organization we have can do the job you expect it to do before we look to expand the organization itself. Now, like I said, I've got several departments that I've asked to come up and talk a little more about what their specific needs are this year. These are areas that are pretty critical to the county in a number of ways. They're also the biggest parts of our budget. So there's significant impact into what we do and what we're able to do. So I'm going to now ask that if we could start with recreation first. And Mr. Vance, if you would come on up.
Mr. Carpenter, what page is that on? Can you guide us there?
Thank you. What department number?
03603.
Okay,
036035.
27, page 27.
Well, just want to thank y'all for having us here today. You have the budget in front of you. I'll quickly just look at some of the accounts where we asked for increases. So I'll go over that if it pleases council. So in our account in the 5211.02, that's the utilities, electric and gas. We're asking for an increase there. Last year's budget was adopted at $85,000. We're currently, we're at $75,000 right now that we've spent, so we've only got about $10,000 left in that account. You should note that we're asking for an additional $15,000 just due to the increase of utility bills, specifically during the winter. For example, we had one town of Winsboro electric bill. That includes the admin gym here behind you, the activity center. But it is important to note that on that same meter is also this room that we're in now is the auditorium, and also includes the offices in the back of the gym and the maintenance office in the back of the gym. During that month, the December 2024, we received a bill for $4,500 for 1 month. During January of 2025, that bill was $5,200. So if you do the quick math, in 2 months, we had spent $10,000 on one bill, okay? And we have multiple buildings that we're responsible for, the Mitford Community Center, the Monticello Community Center, the Boykin Recreation Center, the Ridgeway Recreation Center, the Fortune Springs Pool as well, and obviously all of our other parks. We've got a total of 21 parks and facilities in our inventory, and while they all don't have $5,200 a month, they all do have a bill that comes through, whether it's Dominion, Town of Winsboro, Fairfield Electric, Newberry Electric, where we have to have ball field lights, security lighting, things of that nature. So that account was previously also increased due to the opening of the Ridgeway Recreation Center. Does council have any questions about that increase?
I do. You said you had 21 parks. Those, like, they're up there where I am, they don't have electricity, do they?
So if you're referring to Feasterville and Shelton Park, Feasterville Park does not have any accounts for electricity now.
I mean, do the other ones that are like that have electricity to them?
Yes, we do have some mini parks. I don't have that list in front of me, but I could Willie Lee Robinson Park, Garden Street Park, obviously Drawdy Park, Azure Park as well has security lighting. There's street lights there. But Feasterville does not. I believe the new Black Sock Mini Park is in your district, Ms. Swearingen, and that park does not have a utility bill associated with it.
How much is the, just to keep the light on?
As far as security lighting, so it depends. So usually it's about, to install the security lighting is an upfront cost, could be anywhere from $300 to $600, depending on the contract, and then you're looking at $30 a month per light.
So do children play on these things at night? Do we need a light? For
Are you
these-
referring directly
I'm
to?
talking about the ones like we have out there where I am, which is nothing but,
I would venture to say no. It's hard for us to gauge how many folks are at the mini parks up in your district, just because there's no staff there kind of monitoring or supervising.
no. I'm just asking. Is this something that we can look at too?
We can look at it. I would say that, and again, I don't know all the parks intimately as well as y'all do. Certainly, if there are parks with a walking track or anything like that, people in the winter months get off work and it's dark, but they still want to walk there. So that's generally why you have security lights for things like that. You don't use it for much of the year, but when you need it, you really need it. But yeah, we absolutely can look at it. If we've got some residual things that just make no sense, like if there's no walking track, things like that, then it may not make sense to have a security light. But generally speaking, citizens feel comfortable with a security light there. That's one of the more common requests we get is, can you put up lights or put up more lights? Especially in the winter months, if they have a birthday party and it goes towards dusk. But yes, ma'am, to your question, yes, ma'am, we can look at that.
Well, the one there where I am, the only thing they've got is like a swing and a monkey bars. And I've not seen anybody out there playing on them when it's 102 degrees in the shade. I'm just all I'm gonna say about the mini parks, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'd like to mention, so for the Feasterville Mini Park, that, I think it's important to note that that property is actually not owned by Fairfield County. That property is actually leased through the neighboring church.
The one at Upper Hope,
Correct.
okay.
Any other council have any other questions in regards to the utility bills?
How much do you have to pay for their lease a year?
There, to my knowledge, I did receive the lease agreement from Upper Hope. It was a one-page document, which I thought was interesting. I did reach out to the clerk of court to see if there was any additional pages to that document. Haven't been able to secure those pages. But on that first page, there's just 6 signatures from church members, the treasurer and the deacon. And that was a 20-year lease that started in 2005. But there is a notary signed on the lease agreement, but there is no, not that I can tell, there is no county official signature on that lease agreement.
So this is 25, so it's up this year?
No, I'm sorry, it was 2010, and it was a 20-year lease, so there's 5 years left on the
But
lease.
there wasn't an amount that they're charging for it. They're just letting you-
Not that I could see on the one-page agreement they provided me, I did not see one.
Thank you.
Okay, and if there's no other questions in regards to that additional request for utilities, I'm going to jump to 5232. That is our other contractual and professional service. Our adopted budget last year for that was $50,000. We're requesting an increase of $20,000 to go to $70,000 this year. We've used $44,000 of that so far. So we are requesting an additional $20,000 to fund some costs associated with building facility repairs, including heating and air units, duct cleaning, restorations, ice refrigeration machine repairs, as well as we are offering dance instruction now. So that is a contract service that is paid monthly. Additionally, it is also time for us we recondition our youth football helmets every 2 years. And it is time, we are on that year where it's time to recondition those, and that's approximately $5,000.
Is there anything there to fix the tennis courts so that they can play pickleball safely?
So the pickleball and tennis courts request is a part of my capital request.
Did all the lights in the building get inside and outside are working?
Yes, all the lights are working, yes.
On the inside also, on both sides?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Did any of the members of council have any questions regarding 5232? Okay. There is one small request. I'm going to jump to 5415, the liability insurance. We're requesting just $200 there. That is to cover our gather guard insurance that we're responsible to pay to the town of Winsboro for our 5K event.
Who does the grass cutting around the parks?
Around the 21 parks and facilities that we operate. So we have a grounds crew that handles that.
You have a grounds crew, or does the county?
Parks and Recreation has a grounds crew.
Okay, thank you.
That grounds crew consists of a building and grounds coordinator, and we have 2 maintenance workers. There's 3 workers under the building and grounds coordinator. One of those positions is currently vacant, and the other 2 are full. And we also utilize state inmate labor as well. The state inmate labor? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to now jump to 5613. That's our non-capital. Last year, we adopted a budget of $33,000. This year, we're only asking for $13,000. And those non-capital items that we're requesting are some door awnings for our community fitness center, and then also a pool pump.
What number was that?
That's 5613. It should be at,
I have a general question, if you don't mind. Regarding the recreation centers, I've seen at the Ridgeway Center, it gets quite a bit of activity based on, I was pleasantly surprised to see all the activities there. However, the Mitford Center is only open a few hours, a couple times a day, and the lady there is saying we need to do something to get activity up. Do you monitor the utilization of the rec centers, and is there any rationalization or anything we need to do to consider maybe mothballing a rec center that's not being used that much?
so we do, the way that we account for that data is we have sign-in sheets. So we do post monthly calendars. I did just submit our monthly report. I could pull those numbers up if you would like for the participation for this past month. Okay. But that center offers specifically, so on Mondays and Wednesdays, they do pickleball in the evenings, and they do walking in the mornings, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays, they offer open gym basketball.
It's not available all day, it's just some,
So the hours for the center are Monday through Thursday, 9 to 11, and then it reopens at 3 o'clock and stays open till 7 in the evening. And then on Fridays, they're open 9 to 1. And then they're closed on the weekend to the public. On Saturdays, we do have, we're available for rentals, whether it's birthday parties, wedding showers, baby showers, family reunions, things like that. Is there any other questions in regards to the department request? At this time, did you want me to go over a capital request?
Sure.
Okay. So I'm hoping council has in their packet our capital request That was included in our folder during the February budget retreat.
If you look in your notebook, it's the second tab. It says capital requests on it. We don't have anything in this one from you, so,
Well, I did bring some.
okay. Well,
1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Not, okay. So about 5 pages deep into that packet, you should see the capital request. So this is for the renovations, the resurfacing of courts, painting of lines, and installing of nets at the Boykin Recreation Center for 2 tennis courts and then pickleball courts as well. So our outdoor tennis courts and pickleball courts are in need of resurfacing due to cracks and erosion in the courts. You will see some pictures behind this proposal as well. We have approximately over 100 players in the Fairfield Pickleball Club. On average, if you drive down the bypass in the evening, you'll see anywhere from 2 dozen to 30 folks out there playing pickleball. And pickleball is a growing topic for recreation at this time, especially for us. It's one of the most diversely participated programs in our department. We see players in the youth, adults, seniors, male, female. It really is all-inclusive activity. The Fairfield Pickleball Club also has an agreement with SCDOT where they've adopted the Highway for Litter Control, so they will do litter pickup with a 1-mile radius outside of the Boykin Recreation Center. We currently have 4 outdoor courts, which only accommodate 16 players at a time. So many times there are players that are having to sit out and wait to play due to the lack of courts. So with the increased demand for pickleball courts and tennis courts, our department faces the challenge of meeting those needs, this diverse group of citizens. The plan is to install 4 new courts to provide the extra accommodation needed for all players. The pickleball and tennis ball courts will be resurfaced. There are many spots in both courts where you'll find either cracked or damaged. Parts of the court is eroding away. You'll see some of the cracks you can stick your finger through. So this proposal would still maintain that there are 2 tennis courts on the property, and then this proposal at the end would have 8 pickleball courts. The cost is $75,000. We received that quote. That quote includes resurfacing and painting of lines for 2 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, and the installation of permanent posts and nets for those 8 pickleball courts.
So look, you saying you resurfacing the old courts and you putting some new courts somewhere?
No, it would just be resurfacing those courts at Boykin and then painting new lines.
So no new courts are going in?
No, not adding any new courts, just upkeeping the ones that we have now.
Okay.
Where else do you have pickleball courts besides up at the rec center?
So as far as outdoor courts, we do not have any other outdoor courts. We've got indoor courts. We have 3 courts that are inside the Boykin gym as well. They do have to split time with basketball, so they alternate as well. We have 1 indoor pickleball court at Midford, and then the Ridgeway Recreation Center has 3 indoor pickleball courts.
So there would be no way for the pickleball club to have a tournament here because we don't have enough pickleball courts.
Not in the state that we're in right now. It'd have to be a very small tournament, is what I would say.
how much would it cost to get some more pickleball courts?
I would have to do the research on that and get those estimates back to you. But as far as renovating the courts that we have now, that is the cost that was submitted to me.
Well, I mean, it seems to be such a diverse, you know, activity, children, old people, young people, nobody in a wheelchair, I wouldn't think, but anyway, I mean, anybody can do it, and it would be, it's good family fun, you know, so I think that, you know, okay.
I know pickleball is new and up and coming and, you know, and going wide open. The tennis courts used a good bit still.
So when I pull up in the morning, we do have some folks that use them early in the morning. By about sunrise, that they're out of there. We do have timed lights on those courts as well. And in the afternoons, sometimes when I come back to the office after running some errands for the office, I will see some folks out there playing tennis. But again, it's hard to keep track on those numbers because it's really just visual and who we see because they're not coming inside and, you know, we don't have somebody sitting out there at the court monitoring it.
Any other questions from Mr. Spence? All right, thank you.
Okay?
And members of council, if you would, obviously, if you've got any questions, as people come up, feel free to ask them, but to the degree that you can write down your questions so we can address them later, I think that'll, again, help us, because in some cases, we may not be able to have an answer right in front of us, and it just will also just help everybody getting a good answer that way. So if you would keep track of your questions, and we'll answer them all. Yes, sir.
Mr. Carpenter, I do have one quick question. The column that says 2025 actual amount, is that through what date?
Beverly, that is through the end of, through today's date.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. And also to carry on that point a little further, Ms. Gilbach, when you look at those sheets, and you'll see that in most cases, salaries are listed as a separate line item under, it says under finance review. At this stage in the process, we aren't inputting any payroll under the departmental requests. So that's just finance carrying over essentially their current payrolls updated for whatever's happened since then. That doesn't reflect if they did request any new personnel, things like that. But just so you understand why there's, in most cases, that little volunteer group over there on the right in all these departments is because that's where the salaries show up for the current time. Thanks. All right. Public Works?
Good evening, council.
Hold on
We'll
one second.
Wait, okay. 016 is road maintenance, 017 will be solid waste.
12. Thank you.
We're good? All right. As far as day-to-day on our budget lines here, if you go down to 016 line, the rental line, which is $54.01. That's where we're asking the increase, which we spoke about in the first budget retreat, to increase the rental budget to acquire the hot box for patching on the roads. Increase that by $30,000. It's $8,000 per month to rent this equipment. And with that, that would give us at least 3 good sessions throughout the year to see if this is the right path we need to move in the future. And they also do have a rent-to-own option as well from this same company. That on the road maintenance side, that's the only increase I'm requesting here. Everything else, we're pretty good. Questions on the rental for that? Okay. The next one will be in 017, which is the solid waste disposal, which is 5224. As you can see, our adopted budget is 1.1 million, and right now, as of today, we're at 1.25. So we're already over, just because they increase every year. Which I forwarded to Vic earlier. Waste Management is who we pay every May. They're going to increase a percentage every year. So we need to go up there at least to 1.4 million to cover that cost for next year. So that's an increase of about 300,000. And that's something that's totally out of our control.
Yeah, and that's part of the conversations, council, that I look to have with you as we go forward is how we address solid waste. A lot of counties, like we started doing with roads, they segregate solid waste into its own fund, and they have a solid waste fee that they charge businesses and households and separate it from the general fund. You know, there are a variety of ways you can look at it. The one that on the surface makes the most sense is they call pay as you throw, which is basically you pay for the bag and you throw away a lot of bags, you pay a lot. Those who use it the most pay the most. The reality is that really doesn't work. People don't do it. They throw it on the side of the road. They don't participate. And so every time, I'm not aware of anybody that's ever gone to it that didn't pull back very quickly because it created more problems than it was worth. But it's again, $70 a ton. Probably be in $72, $73 a ton next year, 75, 78. It just goes up every year at a rate that, and unfortunately, our generation of garbage is going up as well. People generating more garbage, and as more people move in. So that's one of those cost influencers that really puts our budget out of alignment in a lot of ways, because it's like Jonathan said, we can't control that. If it comes in the gate, we got to take it. And if it's on the side of the road, we got to pick it up. So we don't have an ability to manage that aspect of where we spend the money. And if we don't address it well, we end up with issues of convenience centers not open. If we're trying to cut costs on the spending side, then we close convenience centers on days. Well, that results in either angry citizens, garbage on the side of the road, things like that. So we don't have a lot of wiggle room in that particular department. And there are things that you can look at. You can look at a long-term solution. You know, do we go into hauling our own garbage versus paying them to haul it for us? You know, that's a 5 to 7 year kind of a window to look to see if it pays back or not. Because you got to buy trucks, you got to have drivers that are going to be hauling it to a landfill. You got to have a contract yourself with a landfill. You're not running a transfer station, which is where we do a lot of that. So that's a conversation I look forward to having with y'all. I don't know that we're going to solve it this year, but I think we need to start understanding that it's a very real issue that's going to affect us more and more and squeeze us.
Yeah, and as we continue to grow, it's only going to become more of an issue. As our population grows, that we're in the crosshairs of some potentially, nice growth. So this perfect time to get this ironed out. So when that comes, we're already prepared for it. So on that, as far as day-to-day budget, that's all I have for my department, solid waste and road maintenance.
Thank you.
Mr. Carpenter, I do have a general question. We've been through a couple different line items, and I've looked at the bottom line for these different departments.
Yes, sir.
And so far, the 2026 request seems to be less than the 2025 budgeted amount. Is that because of the salaries that you mentioned?
That's normally going to be where it is. If you look, you'll see that in most cases, operational expenses are flat or dropping. We don't spend a lot of money to run our departments. We're very much influenced by personnel costs as an organization. It's by far the majority of where our money is spent is in personnel line items. And those can be affected by real simple things. You might have 10 people last year, you have 10 people this year, but 3 new ones came in, and you went from someone on single coverage to family coverage. And suddenly that just added $8,000 a year per person. So we just added, $24,000 to that department's budget with nothing changing. And so yeah, that's generally going to be little nuances like that will affect it. Yes, sir. Chief, fire. And fire is page 33.
All right, good evening. Thank you all for the opportunity to get before you and talk about this. 021's the operating, if y'all have that up. All right. I'm going to try to go into order that y'all will see it, because the sheet I'm working off of is a little bit out of order. I apologize if I get out of order. It goes down that. But without going into individual lines, the utilities, I've asked for some increases on different buildings accounts just to cover utilities that keep trending going over. That adds up to a total of like $2,300 amongst all the increases. That's why I'm not going to get into each single one. It's very small in comparison to some of the other. But when you get into some of the bigger requests I have, 5204, the vehicle service budget, it currently is $50,000. Of that, $38,000 just covers our maintenance plan, where we get the yearly maintenance is done on all the fire trucks from a third-party company that bids that out. I'm asking to increase that into $150,000. There's been a lot of increases in repairs over the years, and it's just impossible to fix everything we need fixed on the aging fleet we have with the amount of money we're working with. The next one is line 5313, which is the clothing line. That line used to be $30,000. Last year's budget, it was funded at $25,000. I'm asking to increase that by $15,000 to $40,000. That line pays for uniforms like I'm wearing, as well as the turnout gear firefighters wear to go into a fire. In order to replace 10 sets of turnout gear, which is about what we need to do to stay on a rotation because it has a 10-year life cycle, you're looking at $30,000 out of that 40s just replacing turnout gear, not even counting uniforms, shirts for the volunteers, any other kind of clothing needs we have. So that's what that increase is from. Looking at 5306, which I did get a little out of your order with that, which is the motor vehicle supply budget. Currently what I've been given is $18,000 to buy parts and supplies for right at 60 vehicles, which is very hard to work with. I've asked to triple that to $54,000, and then also in that line, I'm asking for $100,000 to do a tire replacement to get our tires in NFPA compliance on the fire apparatus, because they should be replaced every 7 years according to NFPA rules. That just keeps the tires new and keeps them safer on the trucks as they travel. So total on that 5306 should be $154,000. And I apologize, was there any questions on any of them? I'm sorry I didn't pause if y'all had questions on those. The next one is 5316, which is communication supplies. That's batteries for our handheld radios, mics, if we need antennas, wear and tear items. It's currently at $2,700. I'm asking to increase it to $8,100. One battery costs about $130, and we have over 100 radios, so that really don't go far replacing those batteries as they wear out, age out. The radios are getting a little age to them. And then
Is it the 400s or 800s?
the radios, they're Fleet Talk, which is 400 megahertz. They're like a PAL 800 system, but they're on 400 megahertz. Anything else on that? And then the next line is 5616, which is non-capitalized supplies and equipment. Previously, that line was $50,000. In the last budget, it was cut to $40,000. I'm asking to increase it by 20,000 to 60. One reason being, this year I haven't been able to buy any replacement equipment out of that. And when I say replacement, if a generator's too old and can't be fixed and brakes need to be replaced on a truck. Helmets, which have a life cycle, if Jaws of Life breaks, chainsaw, any kind of random equipment you think about, that would come out of that. This year, that entire 40,000 I've had to transfer over into other lines to keep trucks repaired, to keep our trucks running, which again brings up the point of not having enough money to repair the fleet of trucks and keep them in proper operating condition. And that hits on my large operational increases. And whenever you're ready, I can move over to capital unless you have questions on any of that.
Going back to the tires, I
Yes.
have to say I'm glad my F-150 doesn't have NFPA required tires.
Yes,
But
sir.
that 100K, is that for all of the trucks, all of the vehicles, or just?
That should take care of the majority of the fleet, meaning brush trucks, service trucks, engines, tankers. I think one tire I just had to get for a truck's about $500 there. And that's actually like a 11R, which is kind of a standard, not big flotation type like some of the tires on the heavier trucks. But that should take care of the majority of the fleet there. And I say the majority, like there's one or two tankers that we got, those two new trucks will come in next year. If I've got a new truck coming in a few months, there's no point in replacing a tire on that truck. I'm just gonna, if I'm replacing the truck in a few months, there's no point putting a tire, but that'll get the majority of the fleet caught up. Yes, sir.
And members of council, if I can kind of elaborate a little bit on what the chief just kind of briefly mentioned, but he said when he gets tankers in next year. And remember that all this equipment that we have now, in some cases, it's on a 3 to 4 year backlog of getting it if we order it. So even anything that we look to do for really any of our heavy equipment anymore, you're talking years in the future before you actually add it to the fleet. We just added an ambulance that we ordered, not this budget, previous budget, and took that long to get it. And that was a remount versus a brand new built from scratch ambulance, which is, again, better than certainly nothing. But, you know, that's just one of the critical things they got to deal with is they don't really know how long it's going to even take to get equipment when we order it. And I know people will point a finger and say, well, it's the supply chain, it's this and that is all true. But also in his world, the number of companies that make fire trucks have been consolidated down to there are only 2.
If you count smaller companies, 4 or 5, it's not a lot of mainstream companies doing it.
There used to be so many of them, there was competition. Well, they bought them all up now, and now some of them still keep the same old nameplates. And if you know firemen, they got really attached to particular kinds of trucks, and those are trucks they used, and so many of those are no longer companies that stand or even open. In a lot of cases, they're gone. They just merged into single companies, and so that's part of what they deal with. So I just wanted to kind of, you know, sketch that out for you to understand some of the background of some of these, why we're having to spend so much money. It's not even that we're not buying them, which we haven't, but if we had, we still probably wouldn't have them coming in.
Yeah, the 2 we're fixing to receive was actually ordered in 23, and we should get them around March or April of 26. So that's kind of where the turnaround sits, and I've heard of some departments even getting, like he said, 4-year ETAs on new trucks. It's very difficult, and it's also kind of turned the used market upside down to where a 20-year-old truck that used to be sold for scrap will now sell for $100,000 for a 20-year-old truck that's wore out. The market's gotten very difficult with fire apparatus. If y'all are good with that, I'll move over into the capital, and I apologize, I didn't bring handouts because I know at the budget retreat we'd pass those booklets out that had the capital in it. But basically what I'm going to present today is the same stuff we talked about there too. And I'm going to kind of start with the lower end price capital and work into some of the other. So I'm requesting a total of $25,000 to replace 8 800 megahertz radios we do have for interoperability with other counties around us that do work off of 800. The current radios we have are so old, the 800 ones, that July 1 of 27, they become obsolete. Those radios won't function anymore. So I'm asking for that 25,000, and that's actually to replace them with a more economical radio than what we currently have too, to kind of get some savings. Those are about half the price as the radios that a lot of departments use, but I've got one I've been using for a couple years now, and they're holding up real well and working just as good. So it is a little bit of savings with that. Next thing I'm asking for is 3 4-wheel drive staff pickups, of course with the light, sirens, graphics package, camper type on them. It's $60,000 each for a total of $180,000. That's going to replace 3 current vehicles we have, which is a 06 Chevrolet Colorado that's getting close to 200,000 miles, and it's been broken down and resurrected multiple times already. A 2008 Crown Vic that also has had some issues, but I would like to keep it if it is replaced for a spare, because we currently don't have a spare vehicle. If my truck broke down today, I don't have another vehicle to pull out as a spare and drive. I'd be driving, going on calls in my own personal vehicle if something happened to it today, since there's no spare. And then a 2003 Chevrolet 2500 is what we're looking at replacing with that. Moving through the other vehicles is 3 1,500-gallon per minute fire engines, which the quote on those come in at $600,000 each, which adds up to a total of $1,800,000. We currently have 15 engines, 2 reserve engines, and those trucks would let us replace a 1986 and 289 trucks. And the last engine purchased by the county was in 2018, was the last engine bought. And back then, that truck was about $350,000. So that gives you an idea how much they go up each year. In 18, it was $350,000. Now they're up to $600,000 for a comparable truck. That's not like we're going from a 2-door commercial cab to a custom cab like you see in downtown Columbia. That's basically the same trucks increased that much over time. The next in the capital would be 2 2,000-gallon tankers. They come in around $510,000 each, which would be $1,020,000. So as a county, we have 15 tankers. We do have the 2 that'll be delivered, and we recently took delivery of 1 new one, and that's all we have on order. Those replaced a 82, and then we'll replace a 83 and a 84 truck when those 2 come next year. So if we got 2 more, that would replace a 1988 and a 89. But as we mentioned, because I verified it when I got the quotes, lead time on those engines or tankers are 36 to 38 months if they were ordered today. That's how long we're looking at before we actually receive them. And then the final part I had under capital was to finish what was at the new fire station that was built on River Road by Old Windmill Road, which is Fire Station 11, where the shell was built, but all was finished was decided where you park the trucks. I'm asking for $500,000 to finish out the rest of the station, to make it a functioning station where it'll have a day room, a kitchen, showers, bunk rooms should the need arise, to make it a working fire station. And that covers my capital, which isn't very many items, but is a very large ask I'm aware of.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you sell these things that you're going to replace? Are they sold?
So the trucks that's being replaced will be surplused off and auctioned off. Those 1980s trucks, you might get $5,000 for them when they sell, but they will be auctioned off. But just the age and the years of wear and tear, they won't bring much money back in, no ma'am.
Mr. Carpenter, if we put this in our if we put these things in our budget, but they don't come in for 3 to 4 years, the money doesn't come out for 3 or 4 years, does it?
Can I make a statement on that too, Mr. Carpenter? And you may have mentioned this, but one thing that some fire truck companies do, Pierce especially, like the last tankers we bought, if you do a pre-buy where you pay up front when you order the truck, we save $70,000 off of 2 trucks by pre-buying. So if you do pay early, there is a discount with certain manufacturers, and I appreciate you letting me cut in with that part, Mr. Carpenter.
Generally, what we would have to do, Ms. Warrington, is, as the chief said, we could pay it in full up front and get a discount. We can pay a deposit and then pay it either in increments based on what agreement we have reached with the company. Sometimes they'll let you pay annually. Sometimes they'll let you pay at the end upon delivery. It'll kind of depend on that. Most of them have their own purchase plans where you can pay over time in order to get to it. But as the chief said, paying in full certainly saves us a lot of money up front if we did so. And once you do that, the price is locked in. So, and of course, no contract can't be broken to some degree, but generally speaking, once you've paid it, you've paid it.
Are these fire trucks, are there somewhere that you can lease trucks or no? Lease to own, no?
Not that I'm aware of with fire apparatus. There's lease purchase programs, like he mentioned, where you end up owning them once you pay for them, but I'm not aware of a lease program unless Mr. Carpenter is.
When you get to emergency vehicles, you can't just rent them, basically. They'll call it a lease purchase, but you're owning it. It's just like making a car payment, and you own it, you'll have title to it, and you just pay over time for it. Most companies do not include fire apparatus in those. They'll include sheriff's vehicles, they'll include normal county operational vehicles, they'll include command vehicles. They won't include fire trucks or ambulances. So those are generally standalone purchases that are normally going to be pretty much cash heavy.
Any other questions? All right, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Tim, EMS? There. Sorry. 31.
Good evening, council. Thank y'all for y'all's time and the ability to come in here and discuss with y'all today. Some of the stuff I'm going to just kind of highlight initially was going to be in our request for our 2026 upcoming budget. Some of the items that we're going to highlight specifically, without really going in a lot of detail, will be making sure that our salaries are gets where they say they are, stay where they are at now. We're currently projecting to start running close to exhausting our entire funds for salaries this year. Last year, our overtime was slashed significantly going into this budget cycle compared to what we spent. This year, we're already closing in on $1 million just on overtime. That does allow us to take in staff all of our stations. Currently, we're only budgeted to be able to staff 4.5 stations. Because of that, we have to rely on PRN and on overtime to make those adjustments. When it comes to our different line items, the biggest thing that we definitely want to highlight is our office furniture, which basically includes just our station furniture. We're currently having to replace several different items. Just this month alone, we've had to replace 4 different recliners. Sadly, what's in our budget now, we've already had to move money over just to cover those. We're looking to purchase a better quality office furniture for our stations. which is going to be a ask of $15,000. We are looking at different areas to cut as well. One of those items I want to highlight as far as cutting is to our EMS billing service. We were able to renegotiate a rate that actually saving us some money. So we're looking to decrease that line item by $5,000. And also our communication equipment, we were able to buy new radios this current budget year, so we're asking for a reduction there as well. Any questions just on those kind of specific line items when it comes to our office furniture? I know we really can't get into salaries too much, but also areas that we're looking at trying to move money from to add. One area that we're having to add significantly to is our EMS supply budget. Currently, we're already over budget for it. We're having to move money from different areas just to have the necessary equipment on our ambulances, because unfortunately, everything has gone up, and now with the proposed tariffs and stuff that are looking to impact us, we have asked for a $25,000 increase there, but some of that's coming from different line items that we're trying to reduce on to try to absorb that cost for that. One of the things that we've definitely tried to do better this year compared to years in the past has been making sure that the money is actually in the right bucket, if you will, or right line item. We've worked with finance and we've worked with our own individual tracking, so we were able to make those adjustments that you see that's in front of y'all now regarding that.
Thank you for that. One question, Mr. Martin. Do you, I recall that you made a schedule change sometime last year, I believe.
Yes, sir.
That was effective in allowing you to staff your, I think you said 4.5 stations full-time. Out of how many stations is that again? Refresh?
That's out of 6.
6, okay. Does this budget, does that, when I stand back and look at your whole budget, if you get what you've asked for, will that allow you to increase that full-time staffing from 4.5?
No, sir, we are not asking for any additional personnel. What we're just asking for is just to allow us to remain at our current levels now, and then look at increasing some other line items with salaries and such, just so we're not getting to the point to where we are getting over. We went from, again, when I took over officially September of -- until today, we went from 19 openings to 2 openings. While we would wish to ask for additional personnel, we're being realistic and knowing that as hard as it has been for us to attract what we have, to be able to take and just maintain where we are for another year, we feel is just the best option for us, to where next year we would be looking at asking for additional personnel, which would then eventually have an effect on overtime and items like that.
And members of council, if I could circle back to something that Mr. Goldbach kind of hit on, and Ms. Martin certainly did. We have gone from a situation where we were in a crisis in recent memory in that department to where we're almost fully staffed right now. And that sounds pretty simple, but it's not. And kudos to him and his team, his leadership team, to this council for supporting them, the previous council for supporting them in what they're doing, because, again, it was a bad story at one point, and now things have turned around significantly. So I just want to highlight that there are good things that are happening in this budget, and that's an example. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. And one thing I do want to highlight, just to kind of show as a snapshot from April of '24 to April of this year. April of '24, the Blair station was only partially staffed. That's a crew there at least 8 hours, 10% of the time. All right? This year, for 2025, we're going to be able to report that we were 40% fully staffed at that station, 20% partially staffed. So 60% of the time, we have had staffing out there at Blair. Blair, unfortunately, is our last station that we do staff, just because of call volume, et cetera. But because of that, our response times are continued to trend downward. We were over 13 and a half minutes, 2024. As of the last 143 calls that I've pulled for, which includes about half of this month, we're at 9 minutes and 7 seconds, which is by far above and beyond what we could ever dream of. Another we want to highlight is our Southeastern station. In 2024, 13% of the time was fully staffed, 37% fully staffed. This, for 2025, for April, 13% partially staffed, but 73% fully staffed. That unfortunately does come at that cost of our increase in salaries, increase in overtime, et cetera, which is why we're asking for funding that's in there for this year to remain the same, and also a return of our budget year 2023, I believe, of our overtime budget. Any questions just for our general operating budget till we get to capital request?
I just want to say thank you for getting some coverage out my way. I know because Blair's here and it's closer to, you know, up there helping the Feasterville area, so thank you so very much.
Well, again, as Mr. Carpenter highlighted, it has been a long road for us, but we got an amazing staff. They are very dedicated. We are, I feel like we've become kind of a new department. Part of that, y'all can see kind of part of our branding that we're doing. We changed our logo. We're having the newest ambulance parked outside. It's got a new graphic scheme on if y'all want to look at it at the end of today. You know, just to see, you know, what the pride that our department's trying to put out there for the citizens of Fairfield County.
I'd like to just make a statement. The other day I was visiting with one of the local citizens, and they complimented you guys on the excellent job that you did. He hurt himself, and you guys did a superb job. And the ER did a great job. So I just want you to know that there are people that really appreciate you guys, and I've said this before, there have been several times that you guys have been to my mom's house, and I mean, your people have just been excellent. And I just want to say thank you for your job. You are doing a great job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our capital request side, I will tell you, we've asked for Rome to be built. Well, of course, we know Rome can't be built in a day, all right? So I did send an updated list to Mr. Carpenter. I don't know if it's in y'all's packet or not, but I will kind of highlight some of those changes that we've made. Our original request was basically 1.6 million. That was just more, that really wasn't even Rome. That was just more what we needed. We've been able to pare that down significantly because we do understand that there is a lot of needs across this county, you know, from public works to the fire department to the sheriff's department. We all know that there's a lot of critical needs, animal shelters that is out there. So we've looked at our capital requests and we've tried to pare it down just to where we can make it a little bit more palpable, if you will. We are asking for 2 administrative vehicles. Those vehicles are to replace our current admin vehicles. The purpose behind it would be to actually repurpose our vehicles now to kind of decrease the mileages, to spread across to a quick response vehicle that we're utilizing currently at about 80% of the time right now. That's our Unit 11, that's a single responder vehicle. In order to replace that vehicle fully, it's about $250,000. So what we wish to do is repurpose one of our admin vehicles into that vehicle. By doing that, that will actually save the county that money for now to where we can try to address some other needs that other departments are requesting. So we are asking for, again, 2 administrative vehicles. They will come in at about $150,000 to $160,000 each. Now, those vehicles will be fully spec'd out with the required equipment that we need for it. Also, they are four-wheel drive vehicles. As we've seen just with disasters and just with how this county is set up, having four-wheel drive vehicles for admin vehicles is very, very important for us.
So just clarification, the
Yes.
number we have in front of us is 256,000 for administrative vehicles.
Yes, that was our
Is that
original,
the-
we was asking for 4. Now we're paring it down to 2.
But at 150 to 160K each, that's...
No, total for both.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sorry about that, Mr. Gobot. Yep, so and those will be, currently we are utilizing Chevrolet Tahoes. Honestly, you're just paying for an expensive badge, if you will. We could get the same amount of room, if not actually larger amount of room, for significant cost by switching to a Ford Expedition. By doing so, fully outfitted the way it needs to be, we're looking at, again, 74,000 and some change apiece. So for 2 of them is, again, closing in on that 150 mark.
Mr. Martin, now those would be also QRVs essentially?
Yes, sir. Yes, so these
You want to
vehicles.
explain that to the council?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Carpenter. So these vehicles are what myself and Deputy Chief Sam Larrabee are issued to use, okay? We use those vehicles for secondary response to back up our crews. We use them to respond to calls when no ambulances are available. Even there's been times that we've had all 6 of our units on the road, but there have been times we've had to respond our own vehicles just to get out there to get to the citizens. This is a highlight with the bus incident that was in Chester County. You know, we sent several ambulances up there, and we still had to take care of our county during that process. And we was able to, again, maintain that while giving, three resources to Chester County to help with that incident. So those vehicles aren't just to drive up and down and for us to get from point A to point B. Those vehicles are used for patient care. We respond quite regularly to calls just to be able to take and back up our crews or to be on scene first before ambulance gets there.
So a QRV is a quick response vehicle, and as Chief is saying, all their vehicles are actually capable of providing care, first response to a citizen in need. So they call them an administrative vehicle, but they're not purely to drive home to work, back to home again.
Correct. Yep. And what we're wishing to do is take our one of our current administrative vehicles now and have that assigned to our education lieutenant, who we're asked to actually do a reclassification of his position to where it will include a vehicle for him. Because currently now he is able to go out there and that will provide another responder for us. But he also takes and currently now has been doing tons of community outreach, going to different areas to provide education that we're providing to the citizens. We wish for, our goal is always will be to do the very best for every citizen and visitor of Fairfield County. And by utilizing some of this equipment does allow us to do that. Another item that's in our capital request is new technology when it comes to our computers. Our initial request was for 8 new computers at $25,000 and some change each. We actually have changed that down to actually 7, which I know doesn't sound like a big difference, but that does put us on a plan to where we're able to replace our entire computer fleet within 2 years. Because one of the biggest problems we feel like we've had with our department is all of our equipment goes out around the same time. So our ask is always so large. So we're trying to get ourselves on a rotation to where when we start asking for equipment, it's going to be a lot lesser quantities to be able to spread it out over time. It's not fair to the citizens here to have to keep forking over a lot of money every 5 to 6 years when we can actually do them every year and buy smaller amounts. The last thing that's going to really be on our capital request is the replacement money for an ambulance that was purchased last year. We discussed doing the council retreat for the budget, and that money has to be placed into this budget, unfortunately. That's for $333,031. That is to help purchase an ambulance that's already on order that we've already issued a PO for. With all of that we are requesting, our request went from about 1.6 million down to just a little bit over $600,000, which includes that ambulance for our capital improvement. That will get us through for this year to where hopefully y'all will be able to help other departments as well.
What was the total cost for the computers?
To buy 8 of them is $25,671.44. Basically, it comes out to be $2,999 a piece. By the time you throw your taxes and stuff on there, like $3,100 a piece. So we're actually asking for less, and we put in, I put several different options for Mr. Carpenter to where if we can at least get 3 to 4 new computers, that will at least start the replacement process that we need to get us going to actually have computers actually for myself and for our deputy chief to use when we go on calls, just to be able to do patient care reports. Currently, right now, we use our phones to do our patient care reports off of, and that's very tough to do a long required report on.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Members of council, as you can see, we've got a lot of departments. Many of them are here if you have specific questions for them, but what you've got in front of you are their actual requests. So we haven't filtered out unless they have gone and made some tweaks since then. If they do, they'll get with Beverly and make sure that they show up in the records. You would have that. But I'm going to ask that you take this information and go through it and look at it, and then any departments that haven't spoken, and obviously there are a number of them here, you know, we'll arrange to get your questions answered. If you want to spend time with that department, we'll set that up as well. But this is the first time that you're getting all the numbers in front of you, so I think that, you know, it's good for you to take some time looking at them and get a better sense for what they're looking for and for where they're going. Again, as I said earlier, the bulk of our budget is people, and you know, it's people and it's heavy equipment, and papers, pencils, and things like that are a relatively insignificant part of the overall budget. And that's always one of the challenges, is you look to economize in your budget, and people will go through and they'll do it, and they'll come back and they'll be able to cut $150 because they don't need quite as much paper or something like that this year. And the reality of it is we're a people organization. What I want to do now is I just want to start having a conversation with you as a council on some of your priorities and some of your goals and objectives. This in no way, shape is intended to replace ultimately a strategic vision for this county, but it is something. So I'm going to ask you, I've written down some questions that I'm going to ask you to, let me keep one to myself, take home and think about them and put some answers down over your thoughts on some of these issues, and I'll go over them with you as well now, because this will help me and staff in determining, because I think, as you've already seen, the requests are going to outweigh the resources. So as we look at where we put our resources, you know, questions that I'm going to ask you to think about is, what are the core service areas that are most important to this community? What should be the top strategic priorities for the county this year and in the future? What are the pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects? If new resources were available, what area of county services would most need those resources? Aside from legally mandated requirement, does the county have a role in supporting outside agencies? And should the county be involved in supporting quality of life issues and programs? I'm not asking for answers at the minute, because some of these will, I think, require some thought from you. And what I'd ask is you do this and get this back, if you can get them to Kim or to myself in the next couple of days, so when we get back together next week, I can start having a sense or your thoughts. Please add to this. This is not inclusive. This is a very much a starting point for me to better understand, because as we have to start deciding, if we have a certain amount of money available for capital resources, where do we invest that money? And your thoughts are going to be very critical, obviously, in me preparing a budget that will meet what you're looking to accomplish and all that. But I kind of wanted to open it to y'all to kind of get your thoughts as well on what you would like as far as the direction we go from here. You know, we've got at least 1 to 2 more work sessions scheduled. It's going to be a busy 2 months. I'll tell you that right now. We've got a month till second reading, and we've got about a month after that till third reading, and we can tweak and adjust those times to a certain degree in getting it done. I believe that I will have some firmer numbers probably within about a week to 10 days. And then what I would propose to do is as I start putting what you tell me into action, then I'll start getting with you. And ideally, I'll sit down with you, and we'll go over where I'm starting to look at and get a sense from you as far as, do you personally, now this is 1 out of 7, so that'll be 7 times, but that gives me the input I need to understand if I'm heading in a direction that individually and then ultimately collectively y'all want it to go, so that when a budget's in front of you, you're not looking at it and going, where'd this come from? I want to avoid that. I want to make sure that I understand what's important to you. You know what your citizens are looking to have accomplished and voted you into the office. So having said that, what are your thoughts? Anything that you would like to see that I haven't said about, so that I can make sure that I can try to include that?
I guess I'll go first. Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. I think that's a great start. And I think, we've talked about the strategic plan going forward for the county, and as we don't have a clear vision and strategic plan, I think this is kind of a predecessor to that, so I appreciate this. From my perspective, I think, for any government, top priority, besides providing the needed services that citizens need, you know what they are better than I do. I think the public safety and health is top priority. And I think what we've heard from Chief Martin was a great example of some of the improvements that have been made there. But I think there's a general need for a significant, I mean really significant, capital improvement plan across the vehicles, the fire service, the EMS, the sheriff's office, and I really appreciate what the council has done just Monday night, getting the sheriff's office some new vehicles short term. But when I've talked to the various chiefs and heads and the sheriff, it's the same theme over and over again. They have aging vehicles, they break down, and to replace all of them at once would be multi-million dollars, and that's something we can't do. So I think we really need to plan for that, starting this year and then well into the future. The other thing I would say that I have spent some time with is the animal shelter. And, I really am thankful for the people that work there every day. And for Director Shaw. I mean, they're doing a great job working with what they have. But somewhere down the road, I would love to see a new animal shelter and somehow, planning for that. I mean, I know it's not cheap, and I know we don't have the money right now, but, I would love to see a plan that we put a plan together where we can actually identify how to fund for a new shelter at some point in the future.
I agree with Ms. Gobart that, our fire EMS and the sheriff department needs some attention. But also, we're talking about how we can build finance, find money to do all of this. And one of the things that I think, and you and I talked about it the other day, is working on the bridge at the industrial park in order to bring in new industry. That we've got to do some cosmetic work in order to entice people to come in and be a part of this county. We're fortunate enough that we've got some new companies that's coming in, but in order to build on that, we've got to do some, and we got it in our budget here to look at getting that bridge done. And once we do that, there new companies can be enticed to come in and be a part of our industrial park. We got a lot of work to do. And I was looking at your questions and things like that, and I think that they are great questions, and we need to really concentrate on these questions and put our heads together and come up with the plan. And like you say, with the strategic planning, what are we going to do? Where are we going? These are things that we really, time out for playing. We got to get it together.
There's one other thing, and it's more of a question, Mr. Carpenter, is our roads. We have a lot of roads, and I've only been to one, in fact, us new guys have only been to one CTC meeting, still don't really understand the process and who's responsible for what, but I guess a couple fundamental questions. Where's the funding come from for resurfacing roads? Highway 21 I know is a state road, and we've got the county roads that we're accountable for, but can you kind of speak to that situation in general terms, and how we need to factor that into our strategic priorities?
Yes, Mr. Goldbach. Roads is one of the fundamental core parts of government is providing roads. That's generally, pretty much across the political spectrum. When you look at, what are your core values of the local government, roads is almost always going to be right there at the very top of them. In our county, traditionally, and in fact in South Carolina, of course, roads have always been first and foremost a state responsibility. And that's why South Carolina as a state has the 5th largest network of roads in America. It's the 40th largest state, but it's got the 5th largest network. Now, the state stopped taking roads some years ago. So any road that's been built since then is always going to be a county road, and it's going to devolve to the county upon completion of that road. So as new subdivisions are built, as new industrial parks are built, roads are put in them, the county owns those roads and has to maintain them going forward. Some years ago, when the state was putting gas taxes in, part of the gas tax was set aside to go to what they call farm-to-market roads. And those farm-to-market were intended to get people from farms to the towns. So towns like Winsboro, towns like Chester, towns like Newberry, Union, all the smaller towns were the market towns. And so every county was allocated a certain percentage of the funds that were collected to go to it. And those funds were then divided by a local committee that was independent of the county. It was appointed by the delegation, and generally it was a senator that would appoint it in those days. And they call that basically it's the County Transportation Committee, the CTC, which you alluded to. And they get money. Every year they get, it's over, I believe, $1 million a year. Here, Jonathan could probably give me the exact figure. And they're able to make their own decision. Now, there is some formula. They can't spend more than a certain percentage on county roads, so they have to spend at least a certain percentage on state roads. But they've got a lot of flexibility within that of how they spend it. It has been the direction of this current CTC that they use that money to pave roads, new roads, to take dirt roads and turn them to paved roads. And that was a decision they made. Other counties didn't do it that way. They used the money either for a portion of that and a portion of resurfacing roads, but our CTC is mostly focused on paving, creating new roads that are county roads. And so what that does is that just adds more roads to our network to maintain as time goes on. I know that the requests have been made to them to consider putting more money towards resurfacing, and I understand that they have agreed to start putting some money towards resurfacing of that. That would be very helpful, but if we could get more towards resurfacing, that would go a long way. Even if they're state roads, most of our roads are still state. So whether they're a state or a county road, resurfacing an existing road is huge. I don't need to tell y'all drive the road. Some of our roads are just, they're more pothole than they are road. And anything we can do will make a difference. The county, a couple of years back, implemented a road maintenance fee. And that is a fee the state allows you to do. Many, if not most counties have implemented one. It's based on vehicle. If you have a car, you have to pay the fee. The idea being it's a user fee. If you're driving the roads, and you're going to pay towards the cost of maintaining those roads. A lawsuit was filed, Greenville County, and while that lawsuit was under consideration, ultimately the Supreme Court ruled and said that they weren't legal, which contravened the actual intention of the General Assembly when they created those. So that created a little crisis because the General Assembly created fees with the idea that we could collect some user fees. The Supreme Court put some very specific limitations that made it virtually impossible to use it that way because they determined that they very narrowly interpreted the language in the law. So the General Assembly had to come back and rewrite the law to allow it to happen. Well, while all that was going on, we did not collect the fee because we didn't want to collect a fee, spend the money, then have to turn around and pay it back. So we didn't collect the fee. Well, we've never collected the fee since then. So one of the parts of my budget will be the council has already approved the fee. It is legal. It is done. The Supreme Court ruled. They made their decision. The General Assembly weighed in. They made their decision. We're good. So I will be including that fee in the budget, and in fact, will probably request the council consider raising it. It was a $10 fee, which is not an insignificant amount of money, but we're not going to generate enough money to make a significant impact in the actual road budget itself. Part of our discussion is going to be what do we use that for in the roads? Do we use it to operate the department itself, or do we use it to expand upon resurfacing and pavement like that? So as you heard spoken, we need equipment. Right now, we may not have the money in our budget to buy equipment for them. We might have a fee that's generating revenue, but if we don't allow the use of it for that equipment, then it's not helping us there. It can go to resurface a road somewhere else that we hire someone to do. So there's some policy decisions that we're going to talk about in the next weeks to see what this council is comfortable doing with that and what direction you want to go. But at the end of the day, we got guys that are out there and they're scraping roads. We've got many, many miles of dirt roads that we maintain. We've got gravel roads we maintain. We have paved roads that we maintain. The state maintains them. The state does a good job. We work well together as two, and I can tell you that's not the case in every county. But our state road department, our county road department are very closely aligned. We meet, we talk regularly, and work together. So again, a long answer to a short question, but
Yes, sir. But isn't there an active list of roads that's scheduled to be repaired?
Yes, sir. There is a list that the CTC puts out. There's a road list, and that is something which is available, and I will get you a copy, sir. And on the whole council, I'll send out a copy of that road list. But I think it's also on the website. Yeah, it's also on the website of the county as well. So you can go on the website and find what that road list is. So that would tell you what they're going to pave this year, what they plan on paving next year, and so on. Now, back to an earlier statement, one thing we don't really have is a good comprehensive plan for our roads. And a 30-year plan for roads is just as important as a 20-year plan for equipment. Because if we don't have that plan, then again, every year, we're going to be doing what the state of South Carolina is doing, which is trying to catch up to 30 years of no work being done at all.
If I recall correctly, that list that's out there is just the priority list for the unpaved county roads that are scheduled to be paved. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Our next meet, again, I'm sorry, I have to, we had one request from one of our outside agencies that cannot make it next week. Behavioral health, thank you, I'm sorry about I was about to cut you off and send you home, and you would not be happy with it if I did that. I told him I'd be happy to work him in today because he won't be in town next week when outside agencies come. Sorry.
If I may, I can share some of the documents that I have, just some information. So good evening, council. Again, my name is Vernon Kennedy Sr. I'm the Executive Director at Fairfield Behavioral Health Services. Appreciate your time to allow me to be able to present to you tonight. As Mr. Carpenter said, I won't be in town next week. And I appreciate the opportunity to give me this. You have my request before you tonight. What I've given you just now is just some highlight information of our agency based on who we are, but also some data from us from FY24. I want to be able to share that with you to get a snapshot of kind of how we've been doing, what we've been doing, particularly for last fiscal year. And we can talk a little bit about that if need be. But just want to highlight my request to you all. One is just the request for refunding us at the same level that you did this fiscal year, which is $56,650. We appreciate those funding, as I often say. The funding that we get from council is a really big help to us. We get funding from several different sources. Our system, our agency was created by federal block grant funding, so we get some of that funding. But as you all know, a lot of federal block grant funding is based on population. And of course, since I've been in the agency now almost 28 years, population has, our population in Fairfield County has gone down. And so we're now probably at 20,000, and we're probably one of the smallest counties in the state. So quite often, when that money does come down, we're already at the lower end of getting federal funding. The unfortunate thing is that any funding that do come thereafter through our single state authority, which is the Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services, they too are also basing that funding on population. So if we get state funding, which we get limited state funding now, it's based on population. If we get any other kind of private funding, they try to do it based on population. And what I've often been fighting for, in some cases being able to get them to support, is that we need to look at beyond just population, because if we only look at population, as you can imagine, we're going to be always at the bottom level of funding, and we need more than that to be able to run an alcohol and drug commission in our county, serving the people in our county across the widespread area that we have. So that request is still there. Your funding often helps us provide some of the services, and really that many of these grants will not. This other funding sources will not. And so lots of times this funding will cover other additional clients that we serve, because we provide alcohol and drug services, treatment services, and prevention services across all alcohol and drugs. Lots of times when we get the funding, particularly in the last probably 10 years, a good bit of the funding has been drug specific. And so that means it may just be specifically for someone who has an alcohol use disorder, someone who has an opioid disorder, and we can't use that funding outside of that. So your funding helps us be able to supplement and use that funding for those other clientele that we do need. And quite often we serve a lot of people who do not have the ability to pay. But because we receive federal funding, we still have to serve them. And so oftentimes your funding is also used to kind of absorb the services that we provide to these clients that don't have the ability to pay, which we have to prove, and they understand that, but we still have to be able to have ways to pay for those services. So that is my first request to you all, that same level of funding. My second request to you all is something that, Mr. Carpenter and I have had some conversation about, and I just want to bring us to us again for us to really consider. I certainly appreciate council and how they assisted us in helping us construct a new facility almost 6 years ago now, a little over 6 years ago. We got a good bit of funding from the state. We was happy about that, and we were able to convince council to also put in some funding as well. And the funding that the council put in was really based on a loan, which we had not known in the very beginning, but we certainly appreciate it. But that loan is a no-sale facility loan. And so meaning if we don't sell that facility, our facility in 25 years, then we don't have to repay that back. We have no intentions of doing that. We've been there almost 51 years. We will continue to be there. We are the authority in the county to provide these services. We're created by legislation. So our system is not going anywhere because people with alcohol and drug issues, they're not really going anywhere either. And so we're going to always be around. So my request to you all, and my board unfortunately could not be here because most of them work, they are certainly behind this, is that the council would really consider forgiving that loan. One is because it's just sitting on our books, as it probably is sitting on you all's books. And so because it's not really a money transactional type thing, we're asking that the council really strongly consider forgiving that piece of that. And so those are the two things that we have before you all. Again, I'll just point out, just highlight some of the results that we have on our newly created infographic that we presented. Yeah, you had a question?
I wasn't here with how much was the loan?
It was 500,000.
500,000.
Yeah, that should have been in the letter that I submitted, but it's
Where is that?
it was 500,000.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
How much do you get from federal funds?
Federal funds, we get about, right now, about a little over 200,000 from federal funds, from the federal block grant. And that comes through Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services.
And state grants, or grants from the state, or?
We get some funding from the state. Probably right now, it's less than about $20,000. And the rest of the funding we get from private foundations or private grants that we do, because we have to write a lot of grants to try to absorb some of these costs that we have. We certainly bill client services, Medicaid, insurance, MCOs, things of that nature. But the federal block grant money makes up about 51% of the funding that we get. Other things are coming from client fees, some state funds, county funds, alcohol excise tax, things of that nature. And then, of course, private grants that we get when we write for those grants.
Are you kind of concerned about the federal funding with all of the cuts that's being made?
Yeah, we are able to get additional grants through the Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services. And one of the things that has occurred is a lot of funding came through the ARPA fund, through the American Rescue and Recovery Act. We knew that was going to be a temporary fund. For us, it was supposed to end in June of this year, where we got called March 24th that it was immediately cut off. Because of that, I had to pretty much close down that program. That staff is going to be, instead of being released in June, that staff I actually have to be released in March. Well, I'm giving them till May 2nd. I just didn't want to just close the door on them immediately. But that was one thing. We had some additional funding that came through the federal government, through DAODAS, that allowed us to be able to provide services to clients who didn't have the means to pay. That funding also was reduced. We're getting some more of that next year, but it's almost reduced about 55%. And so that's going to be a cut in that particular pot of funding. As far as Medicaid, we keep hearing that there's not going to be any major cuts to Medicaid, MCOs, which is still part of our Medicaid system in South Carolina. We don't know yet, and so we're just really kind of waiting to see. What we do know is we have conversations through the Department of Alcohol and Other Drug Abuse Services, as well as our own association. We have the Behavioral Health Services Association, who's in contact with some of the federal staffers, trying to make sure that we stay on top of whether or not there's going to be major cuts in the Medicaid. Because if there are, in the Medicaid program and MCOs, we could really be looking at some major losses in terms of revenue and figuring out how we're going to serve the clients and making really decisions on who we serve, where do we serve, and those kinds of things. We're hoping that won't be the case, but again, all of that's up in the air.
How much total revenue do you have coming in?
Total revenue right now, altogether, we get, our budget right now is about $1 million. About $1 million.
And how much of that comes from the county?
Say it again?
How much of that comes from the county?
56,000 for this fiscal year, and probably last fiscal year too. 56,000 comes from the county.
And does that also include the mini bottle pass-through? Or
That includes the mini bottle pass-through, that includes the opioid recovery fund because we manage that. That includes other private grants that I said we get. We had a grant through the Children's Trust Foundation where we were doing a special prevention program for families. We did that last fiscal year. That ended, so we're not doing that. So things like that, special projects that we get, we write grants for. We get those kinds of funding as well. Okay. Oh, yeah, appreciate your time. Thank you.
And members of council, I have one other that I need to apologize that I did not indicate, but Judge Hollins also is not able to make it, and so she's here. She could come up and, I'm sorry. So my apologies for overlooking the judge. I never overlook a judge.
No problem.
Not good.
Thank you. We didn't get the opportunity to speak at the last meeting in February because we probably considered to be an elected office, but we're not. We don't have any elected officials in our office. But we just wanted to come before you in reference to a capital request that we're making again this year in reference to the parking lot at the Judicial Center. On last year, we made that request. Just want to say to this council, because there are new members on the council, the parking lot in that area is in very bad condition, and we would like to invite you all to come down to take a look at it, but it really needs some attention. We've had 2 judges to have slight injuries from falls in the parking lot, near falls in the parking lot, so we really think that it should take some precedent, not that it should take precedent over everybody else's, concerns, but it is in very bad condition. So we did on last year get 4 quotes that we did turn in at during last year. We had one person to resubmit the quote, but everybody else wanted to keep their initial quotes. So we can make sure that you get those if you need them, but there were 4 quotes given. If we can perhaps make sure you have that information to consider helping us with that parking lot this year. There are a lot of visitors that come there because the family court is there, we're there, DJJ is there, and there are multiple people there on multiple occasions in the county, out of state, in state. So it really would benefit to do something to it if you have funds available.
What's the average cost on those quotes?
The average cost of the quotes, quickly, I can just kind of rattle off the quotes that you gave that we were given.
Mr. Lathrop, do you recall off the top, Robbie, do you recall off the top of your head how much the parking lot cost was at the Judicial Center?
I don't think he was involved in it
Okay.
at all. Mr. Burrows, though, he has some idea of it also.
It was right at 90. Our last estimate was right at $180,000.
Okay. Now, that was the largest one that we received. We actually received 4 of them. That was primarily the largest. If I could just quote that just briefly, on the first option that we got, the first quote that we got, there was option 1 at $75,000, option 2 at $85,000. On the second one that we got, there was option 1 at $106,860. Option 2 with just I guess a revision of that with an additional $26,960. There was another quote for
What was that one?
$70,000 with the second option with revisions at $28,000, and that final one we got was $186,525,000. So I don't know if all of those combined would get you to that amount, but there were 4.
Is that request is 150,000, is that
No, we didn't actually put in the request, we just submitted the quotes, so I don't know what the official request was
Kind of
for.
put it there.
That was staff looking at it and anticipating what what the total, because there's really more at stake here than just their parking lot. There's a couple parking lots there that need total rehab and redo as well. There are drainage issues, so I believe that's a little more inclusive, the 150,000 of the problem versus just putting some asphalt, because that ultimately is not the solution that needs to be done. It's a case of, and I'm sure y'all have been there, yes, yeah, people can get hurt out there.
If we vote on everything, what would be the timeline to help them out? What's the quickest thing we can help them out at?
You know, it depends, sir, on generally speaking, if we follow a normal process, we go ahead and come up with an RFP, put it out on the bid, on the street, get the actual bids in for the project. So to do that, we have to come up with a scope of the project. So we'd have to go and actually engineer it out to see what we need done to it. So you're probably talking, to do it correctly, a year, because you got to engineer it, you got to make sure you do it correctly, then you got to put it out for bid, you got to get the bids in, you got to award the bid, and then they have to actually build it. So it may be less. I know we would hope it would be less, but I don't want to tell you that's a 3-month project. It took 250 years to get in that condition, so.
Thank you.
Members of Council, I think that's everyone I've overlooked. And again, next week, we'll be at the Technical College next week, instead of in here for the meeting. It's elected officials and outside agencies, so the sheriff will be there and the others as well. And we'll continue to discuss this. Feel free to bring up any questions that you have at that point in time. And thank you all for your time and your attention. Yes, sir, Mr. Riff.
And that'll be in Winsboro, right? Yes. Yeah. I just want to comment, if I could, some of the things, when we were talking a few minutes ago about priorities, and I agree with what was already said. Emergency services would be top priority for me, and road maintenance, but also I agree with the animal shelter. That was on my priority list first time I was on council, and it still is. That's really a sad state, and thank for everybody that works there and volunteers, and because that's a real need. Also, our continue with the joint water and sewer system, so we can and hopefully down the road bring in something big for the mega site. And then also, hopefully this possibility with the 2 reactors at BC Summer would be possibly a huge, I don't know how soon that could happen, but a huge boost to the economy of the county. And anyway, probably, but hope we got to hope for that too.
I mean, that's what we set as far as when we sent the letters out, that it would be at 3:30. And that, honestly, Mr. Ernst, is just the way, apparently, that's how we've done it in the past. So just kind of kept with the way it's been done in the past. If it is the desire of y'all to meet at a different time, then we can reach out to those entities and see what, is there a better time than 3:30?
I would prefer 3:30. Okay. Because of work schedule.
Well, reach out to me and let me know, and again, because we're already changing locations, so we'll be reaching out to everyone to make sure they understand the location's gonna be there. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
The motion that we adjourn, all in favor?